only done a couple of takes of this intro because I don't know what it is. Like, I've even like done another take of me saying this to you. Like, I find it really, really hard to make videos when there's other people in the house, which is ridiculous because Mum's actually, I think she's outside doing like the leaves, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if I just like feel embarrassed or something, but I find it really hard to make videos when there's other people in the house. So I've got like this self-conscious thing, I don't know. So yeah, this feels really weird, but I'm gonna have to get used to it because obviously now we're in isolation or in lockdown. I'm gonna be making these and like Mum will be in the house, so yeah, I'm just gonna try and not be nervous, but you can probably tell that I actually feel nervous because people can hear me talking rubbish, the unedited version. Okay, so I'm just gonna answer some questions. If you have any questions or anything you want me to talk about or anything like that, then just put it in the comments and I'll try and get it done in the next one. I won't be able to get through all the ones I got today, so maybe some of them will be carried over. And sorry if I don't get to your comment, I'm just kind of going through the comments now and just seeing which ones I can answer. So Ellie Heggles says, I'd like to know if you have any thoughts on any social change in the future that will come from the pandemic. I'm starting my sociology degree, hopefully, in September, and studying the change is one of the things that I'm looking forward to. I would love to do sociology. I didn't take it at school because I did, for my A-levels I did art, I did English, and I did performing arts, and my other AS level was history, and I also have an AS in classical civilization, which I did not appreciate at the time, because I did not realise how obsessed I would become with like the Iliad in later life, and I wish I had got more into that at the time. I think it's hard to tell the sort of social things that will change. I mean, my hope is that we will turn more to socialism, because in the sort of concern that's going on right now, it is like the government is turning to socialist ideas and socialist policies, and I think certain things where, for example, key workers, people from the NHS, teachers, police, all those sorts of people, who haven't ever really been paid as much as I thought they should. Like, you know from this channel that I have a lot of thoughts about this. Like, I personally believe that being a billionaire is immoral and it's not right, and if I was in charge it wouldn't be legal. I just think that people are paid ridiculous amounts for things that they didn't earn, and there are people out there like teachers and teaching assistants and nurses and doctors who are doing the jobs that our communities couldn't survive without, who are really not getting paid that much money. Maybe not so much doctors. Like, I feel like doctors are paid quite a lot, but I'd like for things like nurses to be paid more. I think maybe there's going to be less of this idea of unskilled workers now, because I mean, even things like people working on the checkouts at supermarkets, I think people are starting to realise that those jobs aren't like unimportant. In fact, when society goes through something like this, they're the jobs that keep everything going. I think politically speaking, a lot of people are going to start to realise, understand hardship in terms of, there's a lot of people who obviously are going to have to get like an allowance from the government, so they're going to effectively be on like a government benefit, and loads of people have already been on that and have tried to tell you guys for ages, like not you guys specifically, but like the wider world, that or the wider UK, that it's really, really hard to exist on those benefits, because you can't really make ends meet on them. Like, it's really tough, and you've still got people who think that people on benefits are lazy and that they're doing it just for the sake of it. And I do feel like there's going to be a bit of a cultural shift, because I think people are going to experience how that is, and they're going to actually start to understand the reality of those budgeting decisions and the things that you do have to go without, and how impossible it is to live on. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't know if I'm predicting it, it's more of a hope, but I am predicting there's going to be quite a swing to the left, because I do think in history we do tend to see a sort of swing in politics, and I think we've had quite a hard right Tory government for quite a while, and I do think there is a lot of energy for change, and I know a lot of you guys aren't with me on the Jeremy Corbyn thing. I personally thought he was great and completely supported him, and I still do support him, but I do kind of think that the energy surrounding Jeremy Corbyn, especially with the youth, is telling me that there is this huge excitement around socialism and the fact that things could change, and it might be a bit generational, and I do feel like that could come. But that being said, when this is over, I mean, it's still going to be the Tories in charge, and we just don't know what they're going to do to try and right things again, because obviously the economy is going to suffer during this time, and it does worry me to think that we could go the other way and they'll be even more harsh. Like, there's just interesting things that I was thinking about. Like, I've been reading about I don't do sociology, like I said. I'm interested in it, but I don't know anything about it really, other than like Wikipedia or something. But I'm interested in like generational groups, so like the silent generation, and you've got Gen Zs and millennials and the baby boomers, and obviously those are very like generalised as patterns. But I am interested in that, and I will be interested to see what the new group is like, because I suppose they may start a new group based on kids born during the quarantine and during lockdown. And I mean, it's small things, like I'm wondering if in the future will we ever go back to coughing on our hands, or will we always just use the cough pocket? I think that it's gonna also show a rise in the people using technology, especially older people. So in that way, I think it'll be a good thing. And this is again why one of the things that Labour wanted to do in Jeremy Corbyn's manifesto was that they wanted to make sure that everyone had free internet access. And a lot of people were saying, oh, that's ridiculous, like that's not something that everyone needs to have, that's an extra. But I think a situation like this proves that actually in today's age it is important that people can communicate with each other in that way. So yeah, I think people are going to be better at using technology. People who didn't necessarily want to before are going to have to get used to that, because I think a lot of people are going to be working from home. I think maybe it will make us more appreciative of things that we took for granted. Like, for example, we can't get potatoes at the moment, and I love potatoes, so it's made me take that for granted. Like, I was taking that for granted, and now I feel like, why did I ever just take that for granted? Why did I think it was just normal that I would go out and have potatoes and have the dinner I wanted? And small things that kind of make you realise it's actually embarrassing, because it makes you realise how lucky and privileged we are here to, you know, think of it as an inconvenience to not have the meal we want. Harry Wykes? I don't know, it's Wykes. What am I doing to keep my mind off everything? I am supposed to be doing uni stuff, so I'm going through, at the moment we're studying Between the Acts by Virginia Woolf and The Four Quartets by T.S. Eliot. So one's a set of poems and one is a novel, but it's also, like, it is a novel, but also it's kind of poetic, and it's got like a play within it as well. It's very interesting. So I'm supposed to be going through that, but I'm actually struggling quite a lot with going through that because of the actual nature of the texts. There's a lot of stuff in the actual Four Quartets, which it was written, the first part of it was written before the Second World War, and then the next part of the poem was written during, and it's kind of written throughout the war, and it feels kind of, there's lots and lots of parallels to what's going on now, and it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. And as for the Between the Acts book, I mean, it's interesting to get through, but it was also written by Virginia Woolf when she was getting towards the end of her life. I mean, this is the last book she wrote, and she didn't even get time to edit it or anything, like, because she killed herself straight afterwards. And so that's been really hard with my own mental health being up and down, because it's so it's hard not to kind of get into that mind space, you know, of thinking like that. It's just, I don't know, I'm finding that quite tough, but I'm supposed to be doing that, and it's also hard to concentrate because I'm just worried. Everything just feels so weird, but all my deadlines are the same, so I'm mostly doing that. I'm doing these, of course, to pass the time. I am watching classic Emmerdale on ITV3, which is good, and actually better than current Emmerdale. I've actually stopped watching current Emmerdale because it's sort of like a protest not watching, because there was a storyline which I will talk to you about at some point, which involved a character called Victoria Sugden. You might know that I'm a big fan of one of the Sugdens in particular, which is Robert Sugden. There he is. There he is. There he is. There's many versions of him around this room. But yeah, it was just like a really offensive storyline involving assault, and just the framing of it was so bad. I mean, I was frustrated in 2017 when there was like a plot which was heavily biphobic, and there were like elements of like assault and non-consent which weren't addressed in the narrative, and I remember being worried at the time, and it just got worse and worse. And this is the one that I've just finally thought, like, I can't watch it. You know how much I love Emmerdale, but it makes my blood boil, and I actually feel like angry. So I won't be coming back to that until that storyline is done and dusted, because I just can't deal with it. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. And then in the evenings, Mum and I are playing Crib, or we're playing Scrabble. Charlotte Hubert asks, have you been participating, or are you planning to participate in any of the Doctor Who watch-alongs that are happening? So the Day of the Doctor this past Saturday, and Rose this Thursday, to celebrate the 15th anniversary of New Who. I didn't join in with the Day of the Doctor watch along because I have to admit I really hate that episode. I really, really hate it. I just think it's like, I feel like I have a special feeling about this because obviously it's got Elizabeth I in it. I know it's the 50th, so it's a big one, but the portrayal of Elizabeth I is so sexist, and like it's the fact that it's like her, that's Anne's daughter, and that it was the 50th, so it was seen by so many people, and the opportunity was taken by Stephen Moffat to make her into like a sexist caricature. Like it was embarrassing and cringy, and I still feel angry about it. And like even on the watch along, I decided I wasn't going to do it, and I wasn't going to type in the tag, because if people want to enjoy it, good for them. If it makes you happy, it makes you happy. But oh my lord, we're in 2020 and people still struggle to identify aspects like that in media. Like I didn't see anybody even bringing it up, and I'm just thinking, oh my god, it's 2020 and people are still absorbing that and feeling like that's okay. Why are they not watching that and screaming? Like, it was just bad. I mean, like generally, like I'm not a fan of the plot of the episode. Like there's so many plot threads that just don't get resolved, like that people don't notice. Like think about it, think about the plot threads, they don't get resolved. David Tennant's got flat hair. Why? It would be as weird as in a future anniversary having Peter Capaldi's Doctor randomly show up with like a big long fringe that wasn't there and no one mentioning it. And yeah, I also think that in terms of like the casting for the episode, I don't get why I'm talking too much about this, but I don't get why the War Doctor wasn't just Paul McGann, because everyone wants to see Paul McGann. John Hurt is incredible. I really like him. He could have played a great Rassilon. Anyone really, I think he's incredible. But this is a celebration. This is not time to put something else in. You know, like all those classic actors wanted to be in it, and they could have been in it, and oh, it was just, I just really hated it. Anyway, yes, I will be watching Rose this Thursday because completely opposite to Day of the Doctor. I love that episode. I think it's really good. I think it's interesting to rewatch episodes that are in our sort of not immediate past, but like quite close to us. I don't know how to word that, because there are things that, you know, it's interesting to look back on how social norms have changed and how ideas have changed, and that was something that made me feel a little bit weird about everyone watching Day of the Doctor and not thinking about how weirdly sexist that was. Like, why not? I don't get it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely elements of the Russell T Davies era that wouldn't happen now. Like there's I mean, especially I think a good example of this is Mickey. For example, I'm sorry if you're not a Doctor Who fan. I'm just going on about Doctor Who. But the portrayal of Mickey, I think he's well written, and like Noel Clarke's really good, and I enjoyed it, and he has more of a character than a lot of the later companions do, even if they're more main, in my opinion. But I do think that Russell T Davies has even admitted himself that he could have done more with Mickey, and there's elements of him that, especially considering he was like a young black man, and like when Rose went missing, like everyone thought that he'd killed her, and then it wasn't really addressed again, which seems really, like, you wouldn't do that now. Like now you would think that would be a huge plot point. I say that, but then our companions now have had opportunities, like in the current series, to talk about political issues like that, and it just hasn't happened. So I don't know. But like little things like Rose using the word like gay, and I think it's in Aliens of London, and obviously Russell T Davies wrote it, so it's like he's using it not as a offensive, like, against gay people, but it's still something that you wouldn't do now, you know. Things have changed a lot, so that would be interesting. I don't mean like I'm just going to watch it with like a critical lens. I think it's a fantastic episode. Like there's so much character work, the fact that it's based around a companion and we get to know Rose so well, I think it's a triumph. I think it's that whole series 1 is so good. I will be watching it, and I will be trying to not maybe think about it so much through a social lens, but I can't help it because that is how I kind of absorb media, I think. Paper Heart Particles asks, do I have any book recommendations? Yes, I actually want to do a couple of reviews. There's a book I'm reading at the moment, and it's called Unfollow by Megan Phelps Roper. So I don't know if you know about the Westboro Baptist Church in Topeka, Kansas, in America. But they are like a fundamentalist, fire and brimstone, like they're the ones that picket soldiers' funerals and have those awful signs with, like, they're very anti-gay. But it's the story of a girl that was, she's a woman now, but she was indoctrinated into it as part of the family, and now she's older, she's come away from that, and she's now like a keynote speaker, and she talks about how we can engage people of different viewpoints and how you can help people from like a cult situation. I'm not really doing it justice in the way I'm explaining it. I hopefully will when I make a proper video, but it's so good if you're interested in psychology and social issues. She's also a brilliant writer, so it's just a really great read. I'm about halfway through that now, but it's definitely worth it. You can get it on Kindle. That's how I got it. Okay, so Prentice Darlington, a long time viewer and commenter, hello, asked me, are any of your family religious? Do you feel pressure to conform to any social rules such as dress, accent, religion, going to a place of worship, getting married, etc.? If the lighting on this gets weird, I'm right in front of my window, and it was such a struggle to set this up in the first place because I looked just entirely like this, and I feel like as I'm talking it's rising and rising. Is that helpful? There we go. It's not brilliant, but it'll work. So are any of my family religious? Not on my English side. I mean, I guess like my great grandma was Christian, but not like really into it or anything like that. My great grandfather was Jewish, but because that goes through the mother, my great grandmother wasn't Jewish, so it didn't pass through the family. They're just kind of, I think they're secular really. I think that they don't really, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any like religious belief going on there. On the Indian side of my family, they're a Sikh family, but to varying levels of belief. Like, I feel like there's two different halves of it. There's like the religion part and the community part. So I'd say the whole family are involved in sort of like the community aspect. So for example, when my grandma died, and we had her funeral in, I can't remember if the funeral was in January or February, I think it was early February this year. It was like a Sikh like ceremony at the Gurdwara, so we went to the Gurdwara and like we everyone covers their hair, so like that's everyone, like it's not just a one gender thing. And we go to the Gurdwara and listen to them doing like prayers and stuff like that. I don't understand a lot of what's being said because I don't speak Punjabi, so I just kind of sit there and like just try and, you know, appreciate the atmosphere. It's a very like welcoming place though, the Gurdwara. Like you can go to the Gurdwara and they will like feed you. You can go in there if you're like homeless or something. The sense of community is really nice. That's something I just think is really beautiful. Accent wise, do I have to conform to any sort of accent? No, I mean, I've this is like completely irrelevant to any sort of religion or anything, but in our family, like on the English side, there's always been quite an emphasis on talking correctly, talking properly, pronouncing your T's. I come from the Medway towns, and there's like quite a strong Medway accent around here, which I don't mind. I quite like it. And definitely like Dan and I have got elements of that, but for some reason like grandma talks quite poshish, my mum kind of talks poshish, but it just depends who I'm talking to really. Like if I'm talking to my grandparents, I'll make sure that I talk properly, so I'm talking more slowly and I use the T's. And then when I'm talking to my brother, my voice goes low and I'm sort of more Medway towns. Have I ever felt pressured to conform to religion? No, never in any sense. I've always just been taught to believe what I want to believe, and I've just kind of decided that I don't have a religion. I'm quite spiritual, but even if I did believe in stuff, I don't think I'd feel comfortable like being part of a religion as a whole, because I feel like it's such a personal thing that I don't like the idea of having to have the exact same beliefs as somebody else in order for it to be like called a certain thing. You know, I'd rather it just be my beliefs. Oh, and as for getting married, there's nothing like, no, I've never felt any pressure in terms of that. I'm never really on either side. I don't know what I'll do when I get married, because I've got like this big Indian family and then I've got my English family, so I don't know what I'll do. Like, I suppose I'll probably have like a kind of mix. I don't know. I think that'll be quite interesting, like for Dan and I, because we're both mixed, so that'll be an interesting mesh of cultures, because the two sides of my family are like totally different in like so many respects. That'll be so interesting when they're all kind of in the same place. Daisy Field asked me, is your name actually Daisy Field? If so, that's a lovely, lovely name. Can you talk about some of the items people are hoarding in your stores? Here in the US, it's potatoes, bread, and hand sanitizer. Pasta is a big one. Like, whenever you go into a shop and you wanted to get dried pasta, the whole place is clear. There's not even spaghetti. There's just nothing. I don't know why people have got so much pasta. They don't need that much. Toilet roll. Everyone's gone mad on toilet roll, which I can understand needing a little bit more than usual if you think you might have to quarantine. But I've seen people with a lot of toilet roll, and it's not an illness that really would make you need toilet roll. It's a respiratory illness, so I'm not sure why people are doing that. It's really annoying. Yeah, there is an issue getting like hand gel and like soap and things, like all the like Dettol, all the kind of cleaning products and things like that. I think there's quite a shortage of. But also it just depends like what time of the day you go, because Mum was working in her school for a while last week, so we would have to get the shopping like later, and because we went later, like you'd go down the frozen section where people had obviously been buying to stock up, and there was just nothing. Like there were no chips, there was nothing, there were no Yorkshire puddings, there was absolutely nothing. It was weird. I think what I saw some like frozen mango chips which we didn't buy, but that was kind of all that was left. Okay, and the last one I'm going to answer today, because this is getting long, and as you can see the light is rising. It's rising. And also I'm getting self-conscious again. Every time I pause to look at a new question, I suddenly remember that it's not just me here and I get embarrassed. Okay, so Maria asks, if you have any insight or tips into how you're managing to focus on study or work at a time when it seems like so much is going on and it's hard to care about the usual stuff. I am finding it so hard. I think maybe just doing it in little bits. I feel like such a fraud, because when it's me at home and Mum is at work, like I get up and I do my work. Like I can sit there for ages and then I'll take a little break and then I'll do more of it, and I'm really studious and I really enjoy doing it. But I'm finding it really hard right now, so I feel like a fraud, because I feel like now Mum's here, she's going to think that this is my usual like routine, but usually it's quite intense. I'm just kind of doing it in little bursts. So I mean, as I say, I'm trying to get through the four quartets by T.S. Eliot. And they're quite like complicated poems to sort of analyse, and I'm having to do a lot of research myself because I'm in my 3rd year and that's part of what we have to do. So I'm just sort of doing it little bit by bit. So I've been doing like one section of the poem whenever I can, and taking lots of breaks to do other things. Like I've been drawing on my iPad a lot, just anything to kind of pass the time, because I know the worry with me is that I sit and think about things for too long, because that's when I start to get worried and I start to get upset. So I need distractions all the time. Like that's just me as a person anyway. And I think it drives my family, well, it drives my mum a bit mad, because like for example, if we're both down there in the morning, she likes it to be silent while she does like a crossword or something. But for me, like the silence is such an enemy for me. Like I always have to be focused on something at all times, because it's when I'm not thinking about anything that my brain sort of like does bad things and like makes me feel low. So I'm just always distracting myself all the time, which is partly why I'm doing this video series. More advice other than doing it in little bursts would be to give yourself little treats. Just something small. Like I kind of hold off on something I really want to do, and I say to myself, okay, after you've done this chapter you can do a little bit of the thing you want to do, and kind of do it like that. Also, don't be too hard on yourself, because this is like a weird set of circumstances, so you're not necessarily going to be working the same way that you did before, but you will also get used to it. I think we'll all kind of settle into it, and it will feel much easier. I mean, I think in the next couple of days I'll get more into the swing of things and I'll be back in my normal routine. It is just stressful for now. Like this morning I was just thinking like, how are Grandma and Granddad doing, and you know, they're fine, by the way. Mum spoke to them today. Yeah, I'm just thinking about a lot of stuff, and I miss Dan so much. I'm going to ring my dad in a bit, speak to him. I miss Dan not being here, and like, ugh, it's weird. Anyway, I don't know if that was any good as advice. I feel like I just complained, but I love you loads. I will see you tomorrow. I will answer tomorrow any more questions you have or anything you want me to talk about. I've seen a lot of people say they want me to do book reviews or show you my Anne Boleyn stuff, which I will do at some point. I'm not sure when, obviously because I am working towards my TMA at the moment, my assignment, but just whenever I get the time. But at the moment I'm just going to do more sort of talky vlogs and things like that. Okay, I love you loads. Send me your questions or anything you want really, and I'll see you tomorrow or the day after. Okay, love you loads. Bye.